I see death as the purpose of life. When you work at end of life, you also become very conscious of how important it is to live life when you have life. Acceptance is a difficult word. A lot of people want the dying to accept that they're dying. They never do. I interpret what your soul wants to say. I am blunt, and I often say, this is your nonsense. Your choice, you can have it. And some people like to be defined by it. I also think spirituality should be fun. I think people take it so seriously.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Real Talk with Dan Shaw. I have a beautiful man here with me today, Cameron Hogg. You are a spiritual teacher, a soul midwife, a sound healing practitioner, and then another one was a
metaphysical therapist.
Metaphysical therapist. So you got a lot of hats that you wear, and I'm sure all of it integrates into one another, how you see fit as to what the healing journey of the person is at the time. Welcome once again. I'm very privileged to have you here with me. I've only been for one session with you, and it really transformed me because no one's ever told me the blunt truth like you. You did. It was painful, but Gary said something so profound to me the other day. He said he did these trainings, and it's the first time that anyone had ever told him the hard truth in his life, and all he had ever done is yearn and seek for the truth. So when you find people like you in life, I count it as a blessing, even though it's hard to listen to sometimes, especially when you get called out on your own BS. But thank you for telling the truth. I appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today around many diverse topics. I'd like to just start with you telling us what you do and what does it mean to be a metaphysical practitioner or healer?
So I'm that old now, I've been around a long time. So I kind of amalgamate all those, what I do, into one form and refer to myself as a spiritual coach. In other words, I'm always working with people to navigate what their truth is and how they understand the spiritual world and how they feel for it. So it's not a case of one size fits all. Everybody has their own way of navigating it and their own way of understanding how it works. So you made reference to the soul midwifery as one of my big disciplines, and I've been very involved, and I was very involved in hospice, and I am very involved in end of life. When you work at end of life, you also become very conscious of how important it is to live life when you have life. So my kind of bluntness, or sometimes my very straightforwardness, is because I'm very aware this is not forever. Live your life now. Don't procrastinate, and don't forever want to unpack your favorite issue and drag that issue around. Because at the end of life, someone can be suddenly diagnosed with something, and within months, their life is coming to its natural completion. And there's so many things they feel they haven't done, and so many things they wish they had done differently. And so the privilege of working in death is you really get an acceptance of it's important to live life. And we can get distracted by our stuff. So I am blunt. And I often say, this is your nonsense. This is your stuff. Your choice, you can have it. And some people like to be defined by it, and that's fine. But as long as, for me, as a therapist, you own that you're defined by it, I don't mind if you remain defined by it your whole life. But if it's distracting you from where your soul wants to go, then sometimes the truth needs to move you on, and it moves you on a little quicker. So I'm not I don't mother people through their spiritual process. I kind of think it's exciting to want to find out more about where you are at that level, metaphysically, outside of the physical world. And basically what I do is I interpret what your soul wants to say. So in a session, I'm listening for the cues that your soul is giving me. So you're telling me your story, you're telling me your issue, or whatever you come in with, and you say, oh, this is what's happening in my life. It's the way your soul learns to communicate. So a lot of people that have been with me for years and years and years, not because It's like there's a final place of, okay, got it, cracked it, we're done, we're sorted. You're permanently transitioning, you're permanently changing, and your soul needs to talk all the time. So when it has a rhythm for talking, so people see me either once a week or once a fortnight, their soul gets used to being heard and understood, and then the soul will talk. So basically, I talk back to you what your soul is telling me, and that's why it's kind of, okay, I get that, I understand that, because it's what your soul is saying to you. And I think when I referred to myself as a spiritual teacher before, there was a sense of, what am I going to teach? I have a discipline, or I have a doctrine, or I have a particular belief system, and I'm going to present that system, and then you can choose which system you want to work with. Then I'm saying, well, we're back basically in a form of religion, because at the moment there are 4,360 different belief systems on the planet. That's 4,360 different ways for you to decide how you want to navigate your life.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to work with individuals as how they understand the world and how it makes sense to them.
Mm-hmm. So what made you go into wanting to work with dead people? Because that's a lot to carry.
With
Excuse me.
End of life.
I just say dead people. Wow.
I do work with both.
Dying people, excuse me.
So I was invited in primarily to work with sex and the dying. That was my first task.
Sex in the dying.
Sex and the dying. Because often we see ill people as people we have to hold on to, or nurse, or pat, or stroke, or we fix the pillows and we straighten the duvet. And people that are challenged physically have as much need to be held and to be loved and to feel alive and to feel that they are connected. So one of the processes of Kundalini energy within us is that it wants to be awake. It wants to be in touch with us.
What is Kundalini energy?
So Kundalini energy in simple terms is your life force. It's the force within your system that travels up and down your system. And it needs to be alive and held. And often when someone's sick, we're frightened of hurting them, or we're intimidated. And a lot of patients that I work with have been through often a mastectomy or bilateral mastectomy, or they have colostomy bags, or they have all sorts of different things that are helping them to stay alive. And people nurse them, but don't hold them. And often the carer is primarily the spouse. And they forget to touch, but you still want to be caressed. You still want to be held. And I don't think you're a mother yet, Dan, but when we have children, our instinct is just pick them up, hold them. Often a child falls and we just say, it's all fine. And we pick you up and we hold you and we pat you on the back, and it goes away miraculously. So we learn to not hold each other anymore. And I think people that are sick often want to be held.
But there is a certain level of guilt. Like for me, if I'm around somebody who's dying, I think it's misplaced completely, and I don't understand it well enough to see past that, to see past death, because I think we all on some level fear that that might happen to us, and it will inevitably. But it's like if you avoid it and you don't look it in the face, then it's not a part of your reality. So when you are around dying people, well, especially me, I've had quite a few family members get very ill, terminally ill, and I avoid being around them because I feel like they are less of themselves than what they used to be. And it's very difficult for me to hold that without getting, very depressed about the whole situation. Yeah. So how do you see past that?
Well, I see death as the purpose of life, ultimately.
It gives life meaning.
Yeah, we're all going to do it. The only difference between us and probably a terminal patient or a patient who's been diagnosed with a terminal illness is that none of us know when we're going to die. Not that a terminal patient knows either. They just probably have more time to sort out things, more time to think about what their life was about. So, sure, while we're in the physical form, we are addicted to life, and our objective is living. and everything around us is designed for living. And I think when you're in a medical environment, the focus is on living. And sure, if you break your leg and go to hospital, you want them to put it back together because you're living. But someone that is, the soul has indicated that no longer wants more life, and that the soul is ready to complete the circle, and that person is then diagnosed as terminal, then it's a different focus to help that person make a completion of this earth life and prepare with a certain level of excitement for whatever the next is. And for each person, the perception of that is different. So I'm not saying there's this rah-rah, we're all going on somewhere special, but there is the next part of whatever your journey is. So often I equate it like if you're going overseas, once you've gone through customs, once you've passport control, then you're in the waiting to go. Then the anxiety is there, and you sit there and you think, have I turned the oven off? Did I lock the door? Is the dog all right? Did I switch the... you go through everything. Then they say, your flight is boarding. It's too late. You get on, and you are anxious about going on holiday initially. And then once you're in the air, it's too late. You're going to go on holiday. And then whatever the holiday is the next phase. Mm-hmm. So that transition. So death is a transition process. It's not an end. But our probable culture is very much a sense of an end of something. And it is the end of the physical. But the soul is energetic. It can't end. It does never end. It's a transition. And so I think it's quite difficult for a lot of ill patients, because in the medical world, there's a sense of we can fight this and we can become better and we can cure. And everyone prays for healing and everyone prays for miracles. And then there's a sense of disappointment when that doesn't happen, as opposed to a sense of, okay, this is not more life. Yeah, acceptance is a difficult word. A lot of people want the dying to accept that they're dying. They never do. Why would you accept you're dying? You need to have a sense of, okay, this is the next thing that's going to happen, and I need to embrace that. But while I'm living, I'm alive, and I must focus on being alive. And when the point comes that I'm going to go into the transition, then I must navigate that too when it comes. So death is a complicated but incredibly rewarding area of life to work, because you are open to another dimension. You do sense that there's something much bigger than this earth life, but you need to get to that point. So it has colored the way I operate across the board in any therapeutic work, because I have this completely different sense of what end of life is and how that process works. So when I talk to people, or they come to me because they're stuck, which is primarily how people arrive at me, they just feel stuck in life, then sure, I'm kind of, come. Let's deal with what's making you stuck, because you need to live. You must live, and you must live life in a way that's exciting and it's dynamic, and it affords you the opportunity to fulfill things you may not necessarily have in your intellectual mind, but they may be in your destiny, in your heart.
What do you believe happens to the soul when we die? What is it that you tell people when they're transitioning to the next phase of life? Where do you tell them they're going? I don't
tell anyone anything, because it's to each person how they understand it. Each religion has a different understanding, for which we must be respectful. And each person has a different perception of what the life hereafter is or isn't. Generally, whatever the person feels is their truth. I work that with them and allow them to have consciousness of that. I don't ever say, there's just we're energy, and when we let go of the physical form, the energy doesn't die. So death technically doesn't exist. It exists only as a term we use to say it's a point of transition. And then there will be a sense of how we operate just within that energetic space. And so people kind of think they think we might hover around as versions of our physical self in the spirit world and look like we looked in this world. I'm not sure that's how it works. In my experience, as I am a level 2 soul midwife, so I do transition often with the patients because they are so medicated.
How does that work?
Well, if I've vigiled with someone intensely and long enough, I can go with them across to the other side. And sometimes if they've had an enormous amount of pain medication, which families want, because we find it very difficult to watch any suffering. So we want a lot of patients medicated out of the suffering, which makes it that they transition in a fog, not always sure where they are, not sure how it works. So obviously, when you're alive, you can't go across too many dimensions. You must remain, but it allows them the time to work out that they have transitioned and now the next phase begins.
And when I say, what does that look like? Do you like imagine a ball of light and they're a ball of light and you like move that light into another dimension? Or how are you transitioning with them besides being next to them and holding space?
When we're not in the physical, everything happens in images. So once I'm in a place of expanded consciousness or in a deep meditative space where I myself might have lifted out my body, then it's just the energies are connecting. There's a sense of our energies being together. So there's no more need for what we use in the physical world. So we use sight, hearing, taste, talk, speech, all those sort of things in this life. When you're in spirit form, you can connect and just be connected. In the same way as if we meditate as a group, we will just all energetically become connected. So our oneness is a lot more expanded because we're not letting our physicalness separate us into the duality. Mm-hmm. So in that expanded consciousness, you participate energetically with them in the transition. But I am conscious then of the way I hold my energy, because I'm then conscious of where my energy is and that they are kind of working together with my energy, because mine hasn't been contaminated by medicine in any way. So it can be a higher vibration for them to hold on to. And then they can use that vibration themselves to revibrate themselves out of the fog. And in that process, allow themselves to then connect to whatever it is they need to feel fully connected to. So it's a transition, and then there's an emergence into source or an emergence into oneness, all the different words we use to describe it. And if you support someone energetically with it. So you know, if you have a friend that's depressed or sad or unhappy, you don't have to unpack just what's making them sad and unhappy. By your own energy, if you're feeling a lot more upbeat about life, they just pick up your energy. And they just say, oh, it's nice having you around. You just lift my energy. And you haven't consciously gone there, say, okay, I've got to do a hop, skip, and a dance. You just lift their energy because you're in a good mood and your energy, your vibration's high. So we're all these vibrations all the time. And so that person gets to link to your vibration and you lift up into that vibration.
I would love to share a story about how my dad passed, and like you call it a privilege. It was one of the greatest privileges of my life. He had multiple myeloma for 5 years. It came to the end of his time. He was in a coma. I was driving down the road near the hospital and I called my mom and I said, my dad needs to go. And she said, well, go and tell him. So I went to the hospital. It was during COVID, so luckily the nurse let me in. And he was also highly, highly medicated. She kept coming in and fussing over him and he needs pain meds. And I said, please, can I just have 30 minutes with my dad? He doesn't need pain meds. He's in a coma. Can you just give me this time? So I called all my sisters, put them on speakerphone, and I said, you need to let him go. You need to tell him it's fine to go, because I could feel he was scared to let go. That's why he was fighting for so long. And 2 of them were fine. They said goodbye to him and that it's fine and they'll see him on the other side. My other sister was very hesitant. She didn't want to let him go. So I said, it's not fair, you have to. So she did. And then I held his hands And I did that, what I said to you. I imagined 2 balls of light, and I like created the force, like up and down, up and down, up and down. And then I let it shoot out of my head. And it was for me like I was holding his hand, and we went up into the clouds and the universe together. And I said, this is where you need it now. And it was like, I don't know, 15 minutes probably. I was in this trance state with him. It was so beautiful. There was no fear. There was none of that. And he brought me out of it by gasping for air. Like his body was shutting down. He's like, and I called my mom. I said, he's dying. Like he's starting to lose the force. And then when she got there with her friend, it was a beautiful moment. And the fact that I can like laugh about it. He was upright in the bed, and I wanted to put the thing down, the rail, so that I could sit on the bed with him. And I pulled a lever, and he just dropped like full weight down. And I was just like, I thought he was going to wake up, and I could just imagine him going, what the fuck are you doing? And we were all in hysterical laughter. And it's not a time to be laughing, but it was such a beautiful, he would have been laughing. It was a very funny moment. It was the most amazing way to let go and to have that moment that was not of the physical. Because I don't even think if he was like there to witness it, would he have allowed it? Because he was so resistant of dying. But yeah, like that I will hold with me for the rest of my life. The fact that you have done this with so many people. I mean, how many people would you say, if you had to guess, that you've helped transition?
Oh, thousands. Lots and lots.
Something that Gary told me you told him was, you said that whenever you go to help somebody transition, you never go there thinking that you're going to help them or that you have something to teach them. Rather, they have something to teach you. What do you think the biggest lessons that you've learned over the years that you've been doing this are?
Sure. You asked the big questions here. So my personal interpretation of what I do is that I allow God. I don't always feel like going or doing it, but I kind of say, okay, God, you want to do your thing. I will make it possible by being present. So often I see the experience as something that person wants to have with God, or how they understand God.
So you're just a vessel.
And I'm there because I need to be there for God to do what God wants to do. And often I'm just fascinated by sometimes the patient's response. So I never think it's to me. I mean, obviously they are responding to me because I'm physically in the space, but I never think this is me doing this stuff. I have done this. I just think, gosh, all right. I needed to be here for that person to engage with God in that way. And suddenly they feel something completely different. So often I can see in their eyes. So what happens is I will look at someone, and almost from the time that I meet the patient, I have this sense of knowing them. And I think, why do I know you? And then, well, I clearly don't know you. But the knowingness is something that's happening between me and my facilitating and creating a space for God to work. And that person's suddenly has a sense of something that's not necessarily of the physical world. And so I think clearly it has made me much more aware of how interconnected we all are. And that while we like to think we are very individualized and we are very separate, we are not. We are all very, very much connected. And very seldom do you ever engage with someone that's not for some other reason, and something else comes out of that, comes out of that, comes out of that. So it's very seldom, if ever, in fact, never, they're just random encounters. There's always something that connects, and then you find a whole pattern unfolding. Mm-hmm. So I've learned over the years to just trust that whatever happens is happening for a very specific reason. And you may not know it now, but for sure, there will be a whole way it unfolds. So that's the base of having faith and not always thinking that everything that happens in your life, good or bad, needs to be overthought. Everyone overthinks everything. And I say, what's in your life? It's in your life. So you've had it and you think it, and you just say, well, I'm not sure. Maybe don't know now why that's in my life or why that person's in my life. So we're so multifaceted as beings. We tend to limit ourselves to think, well, that's you and this is me. That's it. And whatever roles we have in this life, those are the defining roles of who we are. And I said, no, well, they're not. Those are the roles we've opted to play out. And the people that we're the most comfortable with are the people that we've decided that works best for our persona. And then someone else will come into your life and suddenly another part of you goes, oh God, where was that from? Why has that happened now? Mm. And people are frightened to sometimes experience those things or to allow themselves to have truly connected relationships with people because we've become very limited because our environment, our mental causation gives us limitations. I mean, in very simple terms, we're allowed to have one intimate other. That's what's approved. Till death us do part. I'm not advocating promiscuity or anything. I'm just saying that you meet someone else that you have a really deep connection with on a completely different level. But we often don't allow ourselves to have those connections because, oh, no, I can't. I have someone, my other, my special other, or whatever we like to define that person as. And can't have two special others. We can barely have two best friends. That would be conflict of interest. Have one best friend. Why? There are many versions of you. And you may have 5 best friends, and there'll be 5 versions of you come out with each of those persons. You'll have a different version of you. So the limitedness that is imposed on us that we also live by then creates a lot of the frustration in our life and a lot of the problems because we get stuck easily. We get stuck by our gender, we get stuck by our color, we get stuck by what we know, our family.
But then how do you navigate the infinite choices that we have that will ultimately lead to consequences that come with those choices? So for instance, if you have one significant other, it's very difficult because relationships are difficult and you have to evolve with each other and you evolve at different stages. But then you also get to experience what it is to have a solid unit for 60 years. That's different from somebody who chooses to have multiple partners. You're not necessarily going to have the same connectedness that you would if you were faithful to one person. So like you say, there's many different options or versions of you that can play out. But how do you then navigate what is right for you other than basing it on feeling? Because we change, we evolve, right? Like you said. But surely there should be some fundamental principles that we live by, so that we can make sure that we have the best outcome. I know you're calling bullshit, but no, you know what I'm saying.
The danger of fundamental principles are morals from the group soul rather than our own internal moral. So I hear what you're saying, and I think one has to be sufficiently evolved or sufficiently conscious of the self to be able to say that your heart will always tell you what's right for you. And then people think, well, you can change your heart. No. You can change the way you think. You can adapt the way you think. You can change consciousness. How you feel about something is your truth. It's your truth. And so if your heart is its most comfortable in a long, intense relationship, as you described over 60 years, that's the truth for your heart. That's your heart's truth. If your heart is comfortable to have a lot of different people in your life with whom you have intense relationships, that's your truth. So everyone's truth is very different. There's not one size fits all. So a lot of the challenges we have in our society is the rules of relationships, the rules of social conduct, the rules of, containment, the rules that say this is okay and that's not okay. So even the sense of, in order to get the best out of it, you don't know what the best will be. You just got to trust your heart. And your heart may take you on something completely different. So we live in a world where a lot of emphasis is placed on fear. So we go through a schooling system, we have to pass matric. It's like, if you haven't got matric, the next phase of your life can't happen.
Yeah.
And so everyone, all these kids have been through this matric ordeal now, and they're all at rage probably in the hotel, blowing their brains out or doing whatever they're doing in some great big tent in the middle of a sugarcane field. It's absolutely bizarre. But these young people have been through this incredible, and now they're going to wait till the middle of January to see, did they pass or didn't they pass? The schools have got students having 9 A's. They're going to put that all over the newspaper. And you look at that, and was that all that's important? How many A's that school got in their matric year? I'm not saying it doesn't have a value, but I'm saying, what about the kids that didn't necessarily get 9 A's, but are phenomenal people and have incredible passion and hearts and feelings and all that?
That's the structure
Our
we live
system
in.
doesn't do that.
Yes.
Our system says, this is what you have to do to pass matric. Once you pass matric, then you got to do X, Y, and Z. Then you got to varsity, you got to do this, you got to do that. Then generally your options are the big corporate worlds. And then you're in there, and then you have an HR department that tells you you are fireable. And so you start thinking, God, now what? I could get fired. So I've got to do this, and I've got to do that, and I've got to do the next thing. And then people are on this permanent treadmill. And then as soon as you're old enough, someone will come from one of the insurance agencies and say, now, have you got a retirement policy? Mm-hmm. Do you have life insurance? You do need to plan for your future. You need to plan. Oh my God, now to start that. And then when you're my age, you get to this, do we spend it now or don't we? What if I live another 40 years or 50 years? Oh my God. And then when I meet people that are suddenly diagnosed with something, they say, but I didn't do everything yet. I was waiting to do this because I was saving money for that because that was that. And then my retirement policy was this. And then I was going to buy a garage opposite San Lamia, and that was going to be my retirement. I haven't done it all yet. Oh, okay.
So trust your heart is what you're saying.
Your heart. Your heart's the most powerful part of you. Having a good relationship with it. Because yes, we can get situations where the brain is overriding what we feel, rather than we have the courage of our heart convictions to say, no, this is my truth. This is right for my heart. I'm sure it will upset your Oma and everybody else or whoever it may upset, but you know what? It's your heart. It can't be someone else's heart. And you have to really believe in your heart. And the heart is, in our chakra system, the 7 chakras, the heart is in the middle. There are 3 below and 3 above. And the heart is what unifies us. If your heart is not able to express itself because of hurt or pain or protecting your heart, that you don't get hurt because you've had a bad experience, the heart withers. And then you're not able to balance the lower chakras with the upper chakras. So the physical world can become terribly, terribly important. And then we focus on all the things in the physical, what we look like, what's going on in our lives, what our financial status is, what the country status is, what the world status is. And you think, my God, you're thinking about all those things. Have you balanced your upper and bottom? No, because your heart's jammed. So let's open your heart. And then I think a lot of our fear is often that when we find a connection with somebody and we hold on to that with dear life, because people say, I found my soulmate. You know, and I marry people, and I do obviously celebrations of life when they transition. And when I meet people the first time that are getting married, and they tell me, this is my twin soul. This is my soulmate. And we have a beautiful wedding with all the bits and pieces. And 5 years later, they sit at other ends of the room and say, no. No, this didn't work. What happened? What happened to we were soulmates? No. Or I thought she was going to be different. I thought he was going to change. I thought maybe. I said, a lot of thinking. What were you feeling? No, we passed that phase quite early. That was the honeymoon phase. We were told about that. And then reality checked in. Okay. What's reality? No, but you've got bills to pay and then you've got to do this. Okay. You see, then our life gets taken into that dimension.
But then with that exact example, your heart is telling you, I love this person so much. We've been together 2.5 years. We're still madly in love, madly attracted to each other. Your heart's telling you this is the right person. But 5 years down the line, your heart is no longer telling you that. So what? Then you must move on because that person's taught you a lesson.
Well, what that person's showed you is your heart works. So your heart works and you're happy with it. It's not the person, it's your heart. And your heart suddenly gets permission to operate. And your heart doesn't stop operating because that person's not there. And your heart doesn't change because that person changes. People tell me that. No, my heart suddenly stopped working because of that person. No, that's not possible. Your heart's your heart. And that person allowed you to know something about your heart. And your heart was alive and you were having a wonderful time, which means that's what you can do. Now focus your consciousness on your heart and you living in a certain way, regardless of what that other person may have to go through. Because maybe they need to go through something where they're not so receptive to what your heart's doing. Doesn't mean your heart must switch off. So it's complicated navigations like that. So we are a little bit relationship obsessed as a culture, and everyone has a sense of we need to all be in incredible relationships. That's the criteria of done well in the life.
I guess it's a way of being seen on an intimate level that we don't have access to.
In other areas, we don't let ourselves have intimate reactions to a lot of things around us. So to really know your soul, you want to allow yourself to experience as much awe as is possible, because you sense awe, and that's when you know you're in another dimension. So sometimes you can just look at a sunset and there's a moment of sheer awe, the colors, or a sunrise, or a waterfall, or something in nature. So nature will always tell you what's true. We all saw that during COVID. No matter what we were all doing, masks and locking up and what. Nature carried on. We had 4 seasons. We had all 4. Carried on. Nature went.
Yes.
COVID or no COVID. Plants came back. Things grew because people weren't running around, destroying everything. And we saw the power of nature. So when we align ourselves back to that power and that connection to nature, we then have a sense of what we're anchored in. If we're anchored in people, and there's nothing wrong with people, but they're human beings having a whole bunch of experiences, and they need to have whatever experiences they need to have. It's quite cautious to not be anchored in a human being. Nature won't change. You live on a beautiful property, lodge. Animals do the same thing. They do the same things all the time. There's a pattern to nature. They don't run. They all walk down to the waterhole. They do their thing. Then they leave. Then they go. There's a certain pace. They don't rush around. And so it allows us to come back into a different anchor. So I know one of the questions you put to me when we were talking outside was about being South African and doing this work. So there's a question. Why do all of us incarnate here? Why do we all incarnate in Africa? And there is Kemetic consciousness, which is African consciousness. It's a vibration on this continent. And the base of Kemetic consciousness is 100% connection. We are connected across the kingdoms, the mineral, the plant, the human, and the animal kingdom. That's the word Ubuntu. That's what it means, oneness. As Africans that have an African vibration, not a soul, a vibration. We all have the same vibration because we live in this incredible continent, and we live in this amazing country on this incredible continent. And we all have this vibration. And we all attracted to animals. We all go to the bush. It's a term no one else in the world. We say, I know we went to the bush twice this year. No, we didn't go to the bush this year. We had a bad year. We didn't go to the bush. you ever see some people say, where's this bush? Where do you go? What do you go do? We go to the bush. If we haven't seen the big five and we haven't encountered everything, we feel very disappointed. And we're up against it. We see the whole lot from an elephant right down. And I'm very involved in the whole pangolin thing. And we got pangolins with their 3 million year old heritage and their vibrational body and what the pangolin brings. And we just take that as part of our South African life and part of being African. And we don't really stand up in the world and say, hang on, guys, no one else can do this. No one else got what we got. They don't. Not saying they got brown bears and they got antelopes and they got bison and they got all sorts of things. No one's got what we've got. Nobody. And that vibration that we have as Africans, because of this connection to nature, allows us to understand a very finer sense of vibration, a very fine tuning to energy around us. And we are very astute and very attuned to things as a people. And it's part of being African.
There's a certain level of consciousness, definitely.
Absolutely. And we all live here right on the cradle of mankind. And you kind of say, what is that vibration doing for us? And we live on top of gold. There's gold underneath us here in Gauteng. There's sun on top. Gold below, gold on top. So the vortex of energy we live in is phenomenally powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this incredible vibrating body as African people, all of us that live here. And I think when we work more with that, I spend a lot of time in India because I like to follow a lot of the Hindu practices because of their interpretation of energy and how they understand it and how they express it. But very seldom do we have African spiritual, people coming here to learn in the same way.
Leadership, yes.
You see people going to India, flocking to India. I'm sure I'll be criticized. Yoga is a Kemetic origin, not an Indian origin. It originates in Africa. So African Kemetic yoga is the base of yoga. Dravidianism, which is Indian consciousness, and Indian yoga, they took the practice of yoga to another level, for sure. And it's part of their way of life. It's part of their whole spiritual consciousness. But it's African. And Kemetic yoga is very different. And I think if you go to Ghana and you go into countries in Africa, you find a lot more people practicing Kemetic consciousness and really understanding what it means for us to be Africans.
What is Kemetic yoga?
Kemetic yoga is it's slower than the format of Indian yoga, but it has the same connectedness. So the whole principle of yoga is this: it's your physical expression of the movement of the higher consciousness. So how your body is expressing things that you feel and things that you connect with. So it's using your whole being to be connected. And we are very, very connected people. So I think because of our intense connection to everything, we are people that ask lots of questions. And there are some amazing, incredible things that happen in this country. You live in KwaZulu-Natal, you know the vibration of the whole Zulu nation, the whole vibration of the African culture and how it works on our soul.
And how it's so integrated and connected with the land. There's no separation.
At all. At all.
You watch people interact with animals. They walk past snakes like it's no problem. There's no like fear or it's just all one. It's really amazing to see.
So I think sometimes spiritualism or spiritual work can also be taken and put a little bit on not a pedestal, but given this sort of sense of it's highbrow stuff, we're doing spiritual stuff. Or people will say, is it a form of religion? No, it's not. We separate it out rather than saying, but this is just part of our connectedness. We're all connected. We all do spiritual stuff every day. We're just not necessarily giving it a language or focusing on any aspect of it, which is becoming more and more desirable, and more people want to spiritually grow. More and more people want to meditate, to learn to still the mind, to stop the galloping mind. More and more people want to be with their feelings, and particularly men, because men haven't really had permission to unpack feelings and to go into really how they experience the world around them, because we are a very gender conscious country, and men take a lot of responsibility for the role of provider, protector. You know, I mean, it's 2024, 25, and soon. It's still not okay to be a stay-at-home father. If you're a stay-at-home father, they say something wrong with you. Something wrong. Well, you're being boarded. Why aren't you working? You know, we don't run a course. We don't teach men how to run homes. We see that as a kind of woman's work. So all these consciousnesses where men then find it difficult to express that they do have very strong feelings about things, and they don't have the language. You know, I say it's the 5 Ps: penis, provide, protect, procreate, and plan. And if a man doesn't do all those well, he's not successful. But we are also, because of our materialistic consciousness, success obsessed. What determines success? The car you drive, the watch you wear, the clothes you wear, the property you own. You know, we determine success by that. We very, very seldom say a very successful person is a great lover, has a good heart. We don't want to, well, that's just, well, whatever. We don't link that high in whether someone's very successful or not. We look at their material ability and their ability to produce, because we become production obsessed.
So just to take it back, because it was kind of interesting, you were saying about men getting more involved with the spiritual work to find their emotional capacity or to navigate that space. What do you focus on in your work to help facilitate more of that? Like, do you see a future where you would do men's camps or something more oriented towards men?
So I do quite a lot of work singularly with men. I think primarily because in a mixed group, men are less likely to show their feelings if there are women around. And vice versa. If women are all together, they feel much freer to let go than men in the room. I mean, there's a reason we have hen parties and stag nights, you know, when they both go wild. Women on their own, yeah. Men on their own, yeah. Put them together, there's an equilibrium. So in the same process, I think as you evolve, it's easier to share space with men, men together, because it's easier to be vulnerable and to show that you're not weak because you have a sensitivity towards something. And for women to come into a group where a lot of women are very, very strong and don't always like a man to know how strong they are, because that's also the flip side of the coin. But women have a much stronger language for the world of feeling than men do, because they use it more. You know, I often make a frivolous joke, and so, you know, on Tinder, I don't think that many men go for coffee first. Women do a lot of coffee. We'll meet for coffee. No, we'll chat over coffee. Now, you know, I think some men think, God, how much coffee they got to drink till they get to they want to first work out, is there a connection? Then we can have coffee.
Yeah.
But women, coffee first. After 40 cups of coffee, we should know where we're at. So there's a lot of sizing up that happens, which is good and works. But men generally, they don't go there. They're more solution orientated. They want to know, okay, this has got potential. Now we can have coffee. We've worked out there is a connection. So the process is different. I think in the world, we're at a place of awakening where, now this may sound weird, we've worked out that there's a lot of magic in life. Life is magical, and magic happens if you allow it. But in order to allow it, you have to have your heart in a certain space. So if you're fixated with something and you're frightened by something, does not necessarily mean there will be a positive outcome, because you're so fixated on the problem. Your focus is driven by fear.
Where focus goes, energy flows.
Yep. When you are in a heart-centered space and you just have passion, whatever you're involved in, the energy allows for the magic to happen. So magic is kind of when all the bits come together, they will find each other. And for that to happen, it needs an energetic space that's not distracted and focused on one thing, and we are focused on survival or focused on making money. So I think men are schooled to be focused and to find solutions, come up with a solution, which, listen, is the truth. You know, I think that's why a lot of men find supporting someone through end of life very difficult, because they haven't found a solution. And they feel they've let their wives down, or they've let a child down or something. They haven't been able to come up with a solution. And I see families going to the ends of the world. I mean, they will bankrupt themselves because this one will say, go to Turkey and do this. This one will say, go to India, do that. That one will say, go to America and do this. This one will say, eat grapes for that length of time. This one will say, do that. Everybody. And the biggest problem today is Googling. Get Google specialists. Everyone knows someone on Google that overcame cancer by swimming around the North Pole 4 times or something. And then people feel they must try that. And I've seen husbands take their wives and spend every last cent in the hope that something will change or turn around. And then it's very difficult for men, that process, because men feel the obligation to find a solution.
So you do a lot of counseling with
I do a
both.
lot of grief counseling.
Okay.
And it's a difficult process because we are a little bit quick fix. We want to come out of grief quickly. And grief is a 5 to 7 year period. It's transformational grief. So in Western psychology, which I am not a Western trained psychologist, there's a coping mechanism, learning how to navigate and to cope and to deal with. Spiritually, there's a sense of, why is this on your path? What does it force you to know? You didn't want it, for sure, but you have had your heart broken. Your heart is now bigger because it's been broken. It's opened up. What is it you know more than you know before? That's very different from the sense of grief of that person's no longer here. So for sure, a gap, a void is created when someone transitions, because energetically that energy is no longer there. However, for those that remain, they have to navigate what that gap allows for them and what it forces them to do.
There's a saying that when you lose someone, you lose that part of yourself that you were when you were with that person. I think that's also a very painful thing to let go of, because you know you'll never be that version of yourself again.
There's a version of you never knew if that person wasn't there.
Yes, 100%.
Aren't you glad you knew it?
Yes,
Even if you can't be it anymore?
100%.
And animals do the same for us. I think we get similar when an animal dies. We feel an incredible sense of loss from a dog, a favorite cat or something. But then the focus is, well, without that cat, there's a lot of stuff you'd have never known.
100%. One thing I wanted to ask you was about numerology. How does numerology work, and how do you use it in your practice?
So there are many different types of numerology. How I use it is numbers are vibration. So all numbers have a frequency. So numbers that you're aligned to in terms of your date of birth or your astrological chart, how you're placed numerically in life, allows you to then have a sense of those numbers are an indication of your vibrational body, because they link to the vibrational body. And so it's a way for me how the soul talks. So people like to believe they are their personalities. And I said, no, your personality is a consequence of the experiences you've had. If you've had a very challenged childhood, you will be probably very strong in personality, or the opposite, very victim consciousness, depends. But the situation that you've had to go through will determine your personality. So you're not your personality, and your personality changes depending on the environment. So the numbers indicate from the soul's entry what the soul has a sense of this earth life's purpose being about. So in Hindu consciousness, they'll align a vibration to the first number of your date of birth. So if you're born on the 10th, it'll be your number 1 is your incoming number, which in the Hindu lineup gives an indication of a king quality, which is someone who wants to take authority, someone who wants to be in leadership, someone who likes to take on a fight. Also stubbornness. There are lots of things aligned to a 1, because when a 1 is like a singular number, it's very upright, it's very fixed. So the numbers all have vibration. So the vibration of the number gives an indication of the soul, not the personality. So when I will read a number for somebody, it gives me an indication of where their soul journey is in this earth life and what the soul would like to experience, and finding combinations for people that allow them to truly express that stuff is very important. And very often, a very powerful number will come up against resistance first. So they've either been in an abusive situation, there's often been sexual abuse, or there's been a place where they've been forced down. And so they've either learned to overfight to survive, or they have an inflamed survivor because they've felt that life has been full of too much resistance. So they're very resistant conscious. So awareness, consciousness is just when you're able to look at yourself with the objective eye and witness yourself and say, okay, this is me. This is the stuff in my life. These are the people that irritate me. These are the people that don't irritate me. Wonder why not? And you have a sense of, okay, yes, we could get rid of all the people that irritate us, but that wouldn't help much. So sometimes the people that drive us the most mad are probably
our biggest teachers.
Yeah. But also teachers to us to say we're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to have a relationship with anger. You don't have to always be not angry. And then you have a sense of, what does anger allow you? Where does anger work for you? So I often find people that see me more for personal development, that do see me as a spiritual coach or come to me as a spiritual coach, not because of grief or end of life, are very self-judgmental. They very quickly find problems with themselves. They're their worst enemies and their worst critics. And you say, gosh, by the time you finish running yourself down and criticizing yourself, you might actually then just start enjoying life and stepping back and saying, no, actually, I'm doing very, very well. And I think, sure, when I navigate someone through grief, the first thing I say to them is, you've survived this. You must be strong. You've come through this. So what do you want to start with? Where's your start point? That we have survived it. Let's build on the stuff that's positive and let's go forward. And I think as South Africans, we are very much survivors. We know how to put a mess together and make it work for us and come out of it. We're very powerful people. We have no tolerance. We're impatient. But we really are very conscious people. Forbid that I say it, it's because we live in a society where you have to be very awake. You can't leave your handbag on the pavement and go back and think it will all be there. Right? You could be a bit sharp, but awake. You know, in Switzerland, it doesn't matter. You could leave your purse on the train station. Someone will bring it back to you with everything in. But then you also know the train will tell you the time, and you can't mow a lawn on a Sunday because it makes a lot of noise, and all the rules are made for you.
Yeah. That's what a lot of people have said. It's very difficult to go to Australia, like the amount of rules on the road. And here we have unlimited freedom in that sense. So it's always weighing out.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated to see why you brought the singing bowl.
So
I'd love to hear more about your sound healing as well.
So the sound is the most powerful part of us. Sound is primordial. Sound is
what does primordial mean?
That it's embedded in us. It comes from our deepest DNA and our RNA. It's embedded. We all react to sound. You know that. That's why you're a singer. So you know when you sing a certain way or a certain type of song, you will elicit a certain kind of emotion. Finish and claw. You don't say, well, I'm going to sing a deep, sad ballad and wonder why people are laughing. They will all go to that emotion because that's what you have dictated.
Yes.
And you control the audience by doing that. So sound is how we vibrate on all levels. It's a real cellular thing that happens within us. And so it has the power to be very transformative. So all our organs are tuned to different notes, different keys. And when they hear those keys, the organs themselves come into a place of calmness and relaxation, because it's like everyone gets to that. Oh, yes, I understand that. That's me. I get that. We go shh, 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 shh with the baby because why? That's how they've heard the blood when in utero. They've heard the blood going shh, shh, shh around the mother's heart. So when we go shh, 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 you'll be fine, they relax because it's the sound. And sound is the last quality that leaves the patient when they transition. So someone dying, the last sense they have is sound. And they begin that sense of the spirit world. The first thing is they hear the spirit world. That's when they start telling you they're hearing the bees. It to them sounds like bees or a buzzing. You know that they're hearing because they're expanding enough to be able to hear the spirit world. So sound is transformative. With the Tibetan bowls, they're designed in the Sophagian notes to bring us into alignment for all the chakras. Yes, the 6 do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti.
Okay.
The 6 notes, because there are 7 notes. That's one of our notes in life. We have 7 notes on the piano. So those 7 notes vibrate all our chakras in the same way. So it's a very new bowl that I've just got from India. It's a Tibetan handmade bowl. And this is for the heart. So the reason I brought it today was because we're in the month of the heart. This is December. It's about presents. It's about giving. It's a time of a lot of festivity, a lot of joy. People are in a festive mood, whether they're Christian or not Christian. This is the time of the year, particularly for us as South Africans, because we almost stop for a whole month over this time of the year. And it's a time when the energy around us is very heart-centered. And so when I work with the heart for somebody to open their heart up, using this bowl on the patient or around the patient allows for them to really let their heart expand. So the power of transformation through these bowls is unbelievable, because you can't really you can explain what's happening, that it's transforming at a cellular level and it's aligning the body. And the feelings that the body gets coming back into your heart center are ones of total calmness and alignment. So I think all of us like music. I mean, you look at how many radio stations there are and how many people listen to music. And so music does something to us, the sound. And so what we've also worked in sound therapy is you can reprogram a negative experience in someone by changing the sound around that experience. So we all know Jaws. If we change the music around Jaws and had
it would be a different experience.
We would have
like
a complete,
horror movies,
yes,
you need to watch with the sound.
You'd have a different experience of Jaws. So sometimes we register pain or we register hurt by the auditory, the sound. What was the sound when that was happening? And so if we can change the sound around some events, we can let the person release some of the negative energy associated to the event.
So do you ask them to remember the event whilst you're playing a different sound?
So some people will tell you what the sound of the event is. So I use the bowls a lot at end of life because there's a sense of, you mentioned that your dad was in a coma for a period of time. When the person's in a coma, they have transitioned out of the body. So they are experiencing the non-physical world and the physical world, and they move between the two. So when I use a bowl in that sense around a patient that's transitioning, it lets their heart feel connected wherever they are. So they find then that the dimension that they're moving to is more known. I think the only reason, not many people are frightened of death, actually. More people are frightened of how, or will I have pain? Because, movies...
Or where am I going?
Movies tend to, they dramatize death for the sake of the movie. No one just has this happy little transition in a movie because the movie's got to have the drama. So most people think it's a very dramatic experience, as opposed to it's not unlike going to sleep. You just go to sleep and you remember sort of turning the bedside light off, but you don't exactly remember 3 minutes past 9, I was asleep. You were going off and you just go. So
it's a fear of the unknown, though.
Absolutely. And not having a picture for it.
Mm.
So not having a sense of, well, what might you expect to see, or what might that be? So we often talk about light, finding the light, because there's a sense of death is dark and you need to find light in order to take away the darkness. And for sure, as you know from meditation, when you're in a certain level of meditation, there is a sense of light. It's not all a sense of dark, or not dark, ominous, but sometimes the dark is very comforting because it's kind of got a quietness about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the bowl's a powerful tool when words don't work anymore. But you understand the power of words in song and music to be transformative.
Mm.
And people have made millions and billions and trillions out of music because everybody needs it, everybody wants it.
The way that I view the music that I make now is highly intentional as to what it is that I want to speak to in somebody else's subconscious, because it definitely awakened.
Yeah, has awoken.
That inside of me, like I was singing stuff that I didn't even really understand very well, because most of the time you write songs and you don't even know where it came from. Like you'll re-listen to the lyrics and you're like, that is deep, but you didn't really write the song. Like you say that God speaks to people through you. The same thing happens when you write music. It's magic. And so the more I listened, the more I understood how impactful this really could be to bringing people closer to whatever they perceive to be their creator, but something that is outside of themselves, but also within themselves, rather than just talking nonsense and reiterating the same things that have been reiterated 100 times in songs and music. What would you say in your work that you are completely intentional with in your understanding of like where you want to bring someone?
So I think it's different for all therapists. I am never attached to the outcome. I never feel, I didn't help this person get where they wanted to go. I'm not a physiotherapist. I don't work a muscle. So I have just an absolute fascination with people. And I like to think that I'm very non-judgmental. So everybody sits in front of me and I'm fascinated by what their journey has been. And I think my passion comes from wanting them to be more in their journey and have a sense of, are you having fun with your life? Are you allowing the magic? Are you living your life fully? I'm not saying there's not bad things happening, But what is your relationship with them? Or they're just stopping you? Every time something negative happens, do you stop? Or do you say, okay, I've got to deal with this, I've got to work with that, and allow it to take you somewhere, because everything takes you somewhere. You're on this perpetual motion. You're not ever stopping. But if you keep going with all the things that come into your life and allow them, no matter what they are, to take you somewhere, there's the sense of you're constantly evolving.
But I like kind of what you said in the beginning, because I heard this guy speaking about a study that was done on vibrational frequencies, and even higher than the vibrational frequency of love is authenticity. And kind of what I'm hearing you say is like bringing people closer to their truth and freedom from all of the confinements that we place on ourselves. Is that aligning with kind of what you're saying? What is authenticity to you?
Your heart.
So like,
you can't fake your heart. You can fake whatever you think.
But when we are full of fear, we become numb to what our heart's saying, right?
Because the fear is coming from the brain. The brain has told us, be careful of that, or that's dangerous, or this can hurt you, or that can hurt you. So the heart is responding to something that's not its own truth.
Yes. So you saying that breaking that away, or making people more aware of how to actually feel what is going on in the heart, allows them to live more authentically and to understand themselves on a deeper level.
And to be safe, to be free. So I also made the point of being anchored. You must be anchored in something. You can't just float around. So nature will always anchor you. Nature will always give you the truth. Nature's got it tells you exactly how it is. So nature's a place of anchoring. Obviously, meditation is the big medicine. If you can't stop the brain will constantly tell you, don't do that. This is silly. That's not okay. No, be careful. But the brain can only operate from what you've known. It can't operate from the future. So when we live in past, present reality, so our reality is determined by things that happen in our past. People say, no, I've been there before. No, hang on. I've done that. No, I know how wrong that can go. Or this was my childhood. Oh, no, listen, I know. So the minute someone says to you, I know, you say, okay, your brain is telling us about an event that you've been through. Not to say you don't know, but it's a new day today. You're a different person. It's 10 years later. You may experience that thing in a completely different way. But if you don't do it just because you know what happened when you did it last time, then you never do anything. You become smaller and smaller and smaller. You shrink. So obviously, gosh, I'm going to get lambasted with this. I think illness comes upon us because we lose a vitality for living. We are so trying to get it right, or so trying to be safe, or so hoping we've got enough money, or so hoping we're thin enough,
disease.
or desirable, or whatever, that the body just kind of, I can't resist everything. As if we woke up in the morning and said, the sole purpose of the day is to live. That's all I must live. I must just live life. You would be less taxis. There won't be less potholes. There won't be less load shedding, water shedding. All those shit, everything will be there. But if your desire says, no, I'm going to live my life today, your body gets a sense, okay, today we're living. And then you look at things that could unwind you. I'm not going to let that unwind me. I'm not going to go down my mind. Set the intent to live. So I think the body needs someone to drive it. So people are always fascinated or shocked when they get a diagnosis. Got cancer. And? Well, what? Like, came from where? What? Who? What? Someone went, you got cancer. So you kind of say, but what have you been doing? That you've allowed yourself not to be comfortable, that you've allowed your body not to have a sense of we need to, or we want to be alive, and we want to be in life. So I think because of Mandela. And I've always said Mandelaism will become a religion one day. One day, like Christianity, Christianity, there will be Mandela, and Mandelaism will be some religion somewhere. We'll be coming back on another round or third round when it's Mandelaism is what we practice. We had a deep respect for age because Nelson Mandela was so old. And vibrationally, when you were in his presence, you felt like it was difficult to describe the feeling. Not what he was said, not his aura. He wasn't a great orator, but when you were around the man,
his aura,
you just felt, gosh, what is this? And so I think a lot of people age quickly because there's a sense of shrinking. You get to 65 or something, that's it, you retire. Now what? You play golf, endorses, ride a bike in Lycra for the rest of your life. Well, you shrink and you kind of say, but now,
limit yourself. Yeah.
Did you want to do something else? Did you want to have a different encounter or a different experience? And we don't have a great sense of, remember you were in standard 6, wasn't that long ago. You watched the matrics and couldn't wait to be a matric. That honors blazers and white blazers, and they were big people. And then you got to matric, and then?
I was still feeling like I was that child.
You know, so we don't ever get that sense of, oh, can't wait to be wise. I can't wait to be in my 60s. Because we see all these homes, and you see, you can come into celebration from the age of 50 if you like. You can downscale. And you see people doing it. And they want to go to a lock up and go. When it's lock up and go nowhere, because you start shriveling. You shrivel. You don't get a sense of, wow, can't wait to be 60 or 70, and really what wisdom brings you, and have a sense of all these things we're collecting in life. I mean, you're young, you're a baby, and you're in collecting phase, and you're collecting lots of experiences and lots of trauma and lots of love and lots of stuff. And you're collecting, just collect a full box. And then you come back when you're in your 40s and say, okay, I need to organize the box a bit now, because the box is all over the place. And then by 56, you move into your heart center, and then you say, this is what I know. Look what's in my box. Yup. And then you say, okay, now you are placed in life to do something amazing, because look at what you've known and learned in 55 years or 56 years when you move into your heart center. But it doesn't look appealing. So now everyone, they will get to 50 that are Botox and then fillers, and then they want to be 30 again. Everyone wants to be 30. No one wants to be 60. We don't look at it and say, oh, can't wait to be 60. She's, oh my God, hope I never get that old. Oh, hope I never look like that in Crocs. Turn away. So then there's no yearning for life. So when you do live and you have a long and a good life, you have to keep wanting life and having a sense that I'm going to be the most dynamic 80-year-old the planet's ever seen. And I'm going to whiz around, and looking 80 and being 80 is going to be something amazing. And I'm not going to feel at 80 I need to look 30 or 40. Just be happy being 80. So that yearning for life, I think that slows down. And then you see a lot of illness coming into people's lives or things, because they kind of say, okay, well, I've done my fair share. I've done my bit for society. I've done my bit. So there are all these phases in life, which if you get excited by, and you have a sense of really wanting to be that age, that each age has its own dynamic. Listen, I often say there should be clubs where your entry level 60. Before 60, you know nothing. You go play, go sort it out. Then you come at 60, now you can come to the club. And then you get a different level of being there, done that, got that T-shirt, and it didn't fit. So what was the point in worrying about it? And sure, listen, at the end of the day, you can't take anything with you. So the only thing you can transition out of this earth life with is the change of heart consciousness. The spirit world's not interested in your MBA. Not. It's not interested in you to do MBAs. It's not. You cannot take your money. You cannot take your family. You cannot even take your beautifully Botoxed, polyfilled face. Doesn't go with you. The only thing that transitions is the state of your heart. So love is a state of consciousness. It's not an emotion. And every time you're having experiences of love and you're aware, this is my state of consciousness changing, it's expanding. And sure, lots of things in life challenge your heart to expand and to awaken and to pull it in different directions. And sure, you get to the end and the soul question is, how much does your heart know from all the experiences you've had? If you said, oh, Joe, I had only one. I didn't get hurt too many times. What? Did your heart never did much? So that's the time of the year we're in. The bowl is the heart center. There's a sense of, we're reminded always around this time of the year that this is all about where your heart's at, where your heart's at. And sure, it's been commercialized and got Chinese flashing lights and crackers and everything else. You say, well, we'll make it work for you. Don't find fault in it. You know, gone are the days we can put a lit candle on the tree because it'll go up in flames because we haven't got Christmas trees that we went and cut down somewhere anymore. But you kind of say, well, it's still light, even if it's flashing in different colors. Don't limit yourself. Oh, it's not a real light. We need a candle only. Rubbish. Work with what you've got and have a sense of, wow, this is amazing. This is miraculous. Mm. So magic exists. We've got to want magic. So I do like to think as a spiritual coach or spiritual teacher that I help people come back to finding magic and believing that their lives are magical. And out of being awakened with that consciousness, they're able to navigate the things that let them come out of that. And I'm never saying someone's problem's not real. It is. But if it affects your magic, you have to decide, is it that important? Mm. Your magic must be the most important thing. And it doesn't matter what your belief system is, doesn't matter what religion you are, doesn't matter what, and all those things you resonate with. There are Catholic sounds, there are Muslim sounds, there are Hindu sounds. So whatever religion your auditory is comfortable with is your expression, and that's your truth, and there's no judgment of it. But you want to have a sense of magic exists for all human beings because we carry the responsibility for being that level in the lineup of the kingdoms. We are the top of the kingdoms, and we hold that responsibility for the magic. Now, animals don't prioritize magic. They're worried about food and survival. It's their job. That's what they do, and they do it well. And we support them, hopefully, in doing that. And then the trees do their thing, and they don't run around. They stand still, but they move across with it. And then the mineral kingdom just is fixed, stands still. So it's there.
I have another question for you because I really love the way that your mind works. Yesterday, I was chatting to a practitioner that focuses on family constellations. And I asked her about how that work factors into the Christian principles, because it's something that I'm struggling with a lot. Is I come from this self-healing spiritual world, and it's transformed me completely in terms of opening my mind, my perspective, my heart, living more peacefully, asking difficult questions without judgment, but more just of a curious nature. So it's given me an abundance of gifts. But now that I have chosen to become a Christian and I've gotten baptized and the responsibility of that, navigating that, it's difficult because it makes sense through everybody's perspective. So when I ask her, she says that your intention is what matters. But when I read the Bible and I listen to pastors, it says that this kind of work is condemned because you are seeking supernatural divination without God's consent, without God's will. We are looking for healing without God. But it doesn't necessarily align with me because of my experience, but I also don't want to be living in sin. And there's a lot of things that are not answered as well as even Gary said this morning, what he calls a tug of knowledge is how limiting Christianity is. Because if you are a homosexual, for instance, then you're not necessarily welcomed into the community because it's a sin to be gay. So then, unless you're a heterosexual who doesn't sin, then only can you be an enlightened Christian participant. But so, yeah, I'm wondering what your perspective on Christianity is and following the word to the T. And like, what advice would you give me if I came to you in a counseling session with this question?
So religions are beliefs. So obviously...
Based on truth, though, no?
Well, they're beliefs. So obviously my consciousness would be, if you want to join a club, you must share the beliefs of that club. That's what that club believes. If you go to a Muslim club or a Hindu club or a Jewish club or a Christian club. However, if you prioritize feelings, they don't come in clubs. We all feel sadness. We all feel happiness. We all feel joy. We all feel the same thing. So the feelings are what unite us. The thinking is what gives us the opportunity to participate in organized religion, because when we have a belief system, and it gives us rules and regulations to navigate. And I think sometimes the rules are there just to create a safe space for navigation, but they shouldn't always be seen as there is only one way. The rule implies that, as a Christian, you say the Lord's Prayer, which is a seven-folded mantra. It's 7 lines, 3 on the top, 4 base. The 4 base on the physical world. Give us this day our daily bread. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory. And deliver us from sin. So there is a sense that in our human form, we can become very attached to things in the physical world. Very attached. Whether it's other people, whether it's the family, whether it's food, money, sex, alcohol, drugs. We can very easily be attached and forget our higher self. So I think some of the rules and regulations are designed to guide people not to get over attached to things that are in the physical world. And so religion then can appear to be limiting. And so people need to have a sense of, when you join a religion and you work with the rules and regulations or the dogma of that religion, you have to apply your own sense of what is it actually saying versus is it literal.
Well, when you hear words like, again, from the Bible, the literal words are, divination is condemned by God. So how do you interpret that in a different way?
So divinity and divine is also up for analysis. So when you say it's a divine experience and you're saying I am part of a divine experience or I am becoming the divine. So there's a slight difference there. So in Christianity, it will say divinity is the domain of God. Well, that is your God consciousness.
Divination was described as seeking the future or supernatural powers or knowledge outside of God.
Mm-hmm. So when there's a sense of all that's divine is godly or godliness, and we have access to it because in the same breath we're made in the likeness of God. We're not made differently from God, but we are participating in something that is a part of our higher self. So sure, when you talk divination in the sense of sorcery or trying to be predicting the future.
Or talking to dead people.
Yeah, you'd have a sense of, why do you want that knowledge? What do you want to know about the future? Why you don't trust the future? This is all in the hands of God. Why you must now work out the future before the time? And sure, when people want to talk to the deceased, you have a sense of, why do you need to have that conversation? Something you need or they need it? So as a psychic, I won't speak on request from somebody. However, if it's the reverse, then I will tell you. If the spirit world wants you to know something, I will tell you.
But they are of the belief that if somebody is speaking to dead people, so you getting a message from the spirit world, they're saying that it's demonic entities. It's not that actual person's spirit that's speaking. It's a demonic entity that is trying to penetrate through your vessel, and you are giving it permission to do so by...
So that exists. That's real. So someone will say, oh, this is that person speaking to me, or evil speaking to me. Or, yeah, I've been to a channeler and said she was talking to the Virgin Mary, and I said, you knew her voice? How did you know? No, she said. So the sense of there's multiple realms, and the realms can interfere. So evil is something that's real. It's not real. And there's a sense of people that make themselves too exposed to all the realms are at risk. So I go back to why I'm so fixated by your heart. If your heart's in the right place, you will know whether something's right or not for you. So it's not right or wrong, it's just not for you. Your heart will always tell you. That is your antenna to the world around you. If you enjoy the Christian vibration, if you enjoy singing the Christian hymns, the Christian music, your heart is telling you that is your truth. That is where you sit and it works for you. If you sometimes question some of the dogmas, you have to say, why does my heart question that? What is my heart asking? Because sometimes, I'm not saying you're doing this, but sometimes there can be a feeling of, I'm not actually questioning the dogma that they're presenting. I'm just questioning being controlled. I feel a little bit like someone's trying to control me.
Well, I'm trying to navigate it in my own personal life, because I don't necessarily want to strip myself of everything that makes me me. But at the same time, when you get baptized and you become a Christian, you die to flesh. You die to self. So your entire identity becomes Christ and in Christ. And I find that quite difficult to navigate, because people say that all of this other stuff is not in Christ. But everyone that I speak to who does this work is using Christ consciousness, is in love, is in authenticity, is in healing, is in forgiveness. So I don't see how that doesn't line up to the principles of Christianity. It's very difficult for me to go, that's bad, this is good.
So the Christed vibration is the one we live in at the moment. So where I can sometimes probably be condemning of some of the medicine in the world, which the haphazard, easy way people are prescribed mood-altering medication and given anything for antidepressant and what have you. There is a sense of all of it has come out from a Christed consciousness. Doesn't matter how it evolved. It's not like it came from Mars or somewhere else. We have evolved in terms of our Christedness. Navigating that is what we have to do. We have AI now that's come out of technology and our ability to have all the incredible things we have today. Now we have the potential risk or danger or threat of AI. We created it.
And Gary actually pointed out to me, he's like, that's supernatural in its own way. So if I use that as a Christian, then am I going against God's
So you
will?
have a sense of the ability all of us have to create, the ability we all have to love is an expression of God through us. So to answer your question very simply, I think sometimes the basic belief systems of the different religions have a value. For some people, they need to be as rigid as they are, because an alcoholic can't just have one gin. They get everything or nothing. Some people are like that. So sometimes religion has a sense of, no, here's the line. You can't have gray. Black and white is much easier to navigate. But then there are people who are evolved to a point of being able to navigate some gray and come to their own conclusion based on their own heartfelt truth. So sure, if you participate in something you feel is evil, it's not for you. If you participate in something you feel in your heart is authentic, it may not fall within the paradigm, but it's your truth. So you sit with it in a comfortable place because it's your truth. But the club that you belong to has set a certain guideline to ask everyone to aspire to that guideline, because they are saying that is the guideline of the belief system. And that is the one going to guarantee you, whichever direction you want to go in. Now, I'm not saying for 1 minute Christians don't achieve the highest sense of their higher self, but I certainly don't think they achieve it more than any Hindu person. And Hindu also comes with all its, belief systems and its consciousness. And I don't say that's the only way either. So, but in each of the restrictions, people find their higher self.
But do you believe that there's a fundamental difference between right and wrong?
So, I don't believe there's a fundamental difference between right and wrong. I think it all has to be what's right for you and what's wrong for you.
Like molesting an infant, surely there's a line somewhere. Surely.
Well, that's always one of the dramatic ones that's put forward. But we live in a culture where we don't believe girls should be married at 12.
Definitely.
There are cultures that accept that once a woman menstruates, she's eligible for marriage. And in those cultures, it's perfectly sound, it works, it's accepted, it's part of the journey. We buy into a certain age group. We say suddenly when you're 16 or 18, suddenly, and then I'm saying, well, what suddenly happened when you were 18?
You reached a certain level of maturity.
You hope.
More so than when you were 12.
Sure.
And also, I feel like your youth is taken away from you. So
it's our consciousness, you see. It's how we think. But I don't necessarily see us doing anything specific with 16, 17, 18-year-olds to help them come into the world. We just write them off as difficult teenagers. The majority of kids I see have been written off. Oh, they're just teenagers. They're going through that. And I said, okay, just now they're legal. They can vote, they can drive, they can get married. Have we not prepared them for anything? We just say, okay, 18 now. Okay, you can do it all. But last year we were saying, oh, you're just an impossible teenager. Here's 300 Rand, go to the casino. What did we do? Getting them ready to be adult? So we don't know that a young girl in a culture that's been prepared at 12 to get married is not totally happy to accept that phase in her life. And I hear what you say. Her childhood that we see as a childhood has been taken away. I don't know. Maybe she's got a book club with a whole bunch of other 12-year-olds all married. I don't know.
Oh, my word.
And they're all doing their own thing and they're happily having babies and they're done and dusted, finished before they're 20 and they get to live life. And by 30, they're a granny and they've got no more problem. I don't know. And we look at us and think, oh my God, we're still 50 and 60 and we're parenting. And if you're a parent at 50 at school, the kids say, who's your grandpa? You know what I'm saying? Maybe those girls zip through it because they just think, well, why not? Finished, had all the children, I'm 20, sorted. Now, travel the world, I don't know. So there's a lot of belief systems where you say, so I suppose my stance on your first question was, do I think there's right or wrong in a child being molested? If I'm sitting with someone that has been physically or sexually abused or molested, can I tell that person a wrong thing happened to you? Do they recover quicker from that? Or do I say to them, something happened in your life that was incredibly difficult, I do not deny. However, are you going to let it close your life down? Or you're going to take the experience you had and allow it to grow you? Now remember, I navigate children, tiny little kids, 3, 4, having a mother die. It can stop their lives right then, because nobody's going to say, oh, your mom died. Well, bully for you. Nope, that's not our culture. Our culture said that's a tragedy. A child without a mother. I tell a child that, you've got a tragedy to get through. I say, this has been a horrible experience for you and very challenging for you. And every feeling you've had, you're allowed to have. But are you going to let it stop your life? Or we have to make your life work despite it. So I'm actually leaving from you now to go to a woman whose baby has just died. And she cannot make sense of it.
Mm.
Now, am I saying that's good or bad? No, I can't. I just got to say, okay, how do we navigate this? How do we proportion the time to work it out? What are the first emotions you must be free to have? You must be angry. You must have those emotions. But is this going to allow your life to change? Or give you a new consciousness or another dimension in life or something else you know? You know, I don't know if you believe that that's child soul. You want that child soul to think it caused this pain and punishment for you? How do you want to navigate it? But I can't come from a principle of right or wrong. A good thing or a bad thing's happened. It's just something happened. And how we work it determines what we allowed it to be in our life. So sure, you asked me earlier on, one of the things I've learned from death is that death challenges everybody, all ages, everybody. And for sure, if we could have just a school, one school, where all children that had a parent die could go, because those children have to carry on in a conventional school where there's Mother's Days, Father's Days, there's Grandpa and Granny's Day, prize giving, there's camping on the field with Daddy and they haven't got a father, and then they constantly either overcompensated for by 5 other men come, or the child's got to navigate, my dad's not here. Now, does that child close down because of that? Or we have to help that child to say, well, that was my destiny, my journey in life. Is that child more conscious? Is that child more evolved as they grow up because they've had to navigate something that was very difficult versus children that have their parents forever and ever and ever? You're young, your father's transitioned. My mother was 95 when she died. I said, are you ever going to die? Stay a child as long as you're there. At some point you've got to go. Otherwise, I never get to grow up. She died 2 weeks later.
Wow.
But only because I said I was never coming to live in Scotland. It's too wet. But I'm saying it's a really difficult question.
Yes.
Is there right or wrong? Is there good or bad? No, there's neither. There's just experiences. And each one is allowed to color us in a certain way. And we have to then navigate what we want to do with the way we have perceived it. Does that answer it?
Yes, it definitely does. To end off our wonderful conversation, what would you say, either somebody who wants to come and see you or someone who wants to get into being a practitioner of some sort, what would be your advice to both those people? I know they're separate questions. So someone who is struggling with something and doesn't know how to even pick up the phone to ask for help, and then also the other side of it.
So the first person is, talking is always the first medicine. Talk it. Just talk it. When you hear yourself talk, everything starts to get a new perspective. The process is about reframing things in your life. That's all. You can't change what's in your life. You can't change your family. You can't change lots of things. You can only reframe them for yourself. So the frame you need to have is the one you must get. I think people that are drawn to this work and have a sense of what part of themselves they're ready to develop, those people follow an impulse to have a sense of, I feel a calling, I feel a desire to make a difference, and they come to me to understand how those callings work within them and have a sense of where do they take them? What's the area they want to follow? Where's the area they feel they can have the most impact, and the desire to do something for themselves that has an impact for others. I don't take anyone that wants to do good in the world. The world's fine, thank you. I don't need you to do good. But if you want to experience something, and out of that experience, share, that's very different. You know, in all the years that I was at hospice, when I trained volunteers and taught people how to volunteer, it was always a question of, what do you want to get out of it? You're not helping someone die. They are doing the work, believe me. They do not need help. But what do you want out of it? And if you're open to what you can receive from it, you will have an interaction with that person, because that person will allow you to experience something and open something for you that you couldn't otherwise have experienced. But if you think you're coming here to do good, you're here for the wrong reason. Now, having said that, you do good by the fact that you want to experience something with the person.
You want to be present.
Yes, and that allows you to grow and evolve, and you have deep gratitude to that person for sharing that with you, and that takes you on another part of your journey. But if you come to help, they don't need your help. It's like if I was a midwife for babies, not for souls, I can only say push and breathe. Breathe, push. I can't do it for you. I can't help you have the baby. I can just say push and breathe. When you go scream and shout, I just say don't drive, breathe.
Yeah.
And you think a child comes into this world with all that screaming and shouting, and all you're told to do is breathe. And you breathe. And out pops the baby, and you go, and you proceed to have 3 more.
Jeez.
I also think spirituality should be fun. I think people take it so seriously. I think it's spiritual.
Yes.
It must be fun because it's magical, and there's magic. And when you feel magic in life, you want everything because everything's possible.
Yes.
So even in religion, there's magic. And you just got to find it and say, that fires me up. And that's the magic part. The soul always wants to grow and expand. So my final word is, you can see when I say to people, there's no such thing as death. It doesn't exist. That energy, that desire to expand continues. And once you've let go of the physical form and the physical shape, it continues wherever it is. And I don't know because I'm here. But what I'm saying, it doesn't stop. It's not to cut the tree down, finish, dead. So people will say, but I'm not ready to die. And I said, I know you're not ready to die, but your body's going to die because you don't need it anymore. And the next phase you're going to do on your own. So you never have a sense, okay, I'm done, I'm stopping. No, your body's finished, gone. Just like you and I, a day older today. You just, oh, well, yesterday's one is finished. Today's one. Now carry on.
Mm.
So that sense of life is just this amazing thing that we're on, this wave, and it never stops, ever, unless we allow it to interrupt us.
Mm.
And then we just don't have as much fun as we could have.
Embrace the magic.
Yes.
That's the message.
That's the message, girl. And
I
have Christmas with all the magic and flashing Chinese lights.
Right on. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being
Pleasure,
here
my
with me.
darling.
Thank you so much. And all the wisdom.
Pleasure.
Everybody, this is Cameron Hogg. What an amazing human being. If you want to get a hold of Cameron, just drop a comment and I will put you in touch with him. Thank you very much for watching. Please give us a subscribe, a like, a comment, whatever you want to do to show your support. And if you have any other suggestions of guests that you'd like to come on the podcast, please can you tag them as well. And see you next time. Ciao.